The lines that divide our world today were never meant to last forever. They were drawn in ink, but they cut through stone, history, and memory. In some places, they didn't just divide nations, they destroyed civilizations. Imagine standing in a city older than the concept of country. Streets once filled with traders, priests, and storytellers, now split by fences, checkpoints, and maps that call them something else. This is not a story about ruins, it's a story about how modern borders destroyed the world's oldest cities. There's something haunting about this idea, that a line drawn by diplomats could silence 1,000 years of voices, that politics could erase what time itself could not. Today, we travel across the planet, from the deserts of Syria to the frozen ghost towns of Cyprus, to uncover 5 ancient cities destroyed not by nature or time, but by the invention of borders. Because the past didn't disappear. It's just trapped behind barbed wire, checkpoints, and flags. Once, there was a city called Palmyra, standing in the heart of the Syrian desert. Long before nations, long before maps, it was already alive. Columns of stone rising from the sand, carved by hands that had never heard the word border. For 2,000 years, Palmyra connected civilizations, the Persians, the Romans, the Arabs, the Greeks. It was a meeting point of the world, a city of merchants and travelers, of gods who shared temples and languages that mixed in the air. But Palmyra's glory would also become its curse. When the Ottoman Empire collapsed, the European powers redrew the Middle East like a puzzle. In rooms thousands of kilometers away, lines were drawn on maps, slicing through cultures and deserts they'd never seen. Palmyra ended up inside one of the most contested pieces of land in modern history. It survived for another century, though neglected, though forgotten, until 2015. That's when the war reached it. The same roads that once carried spices and silk now brought tanks and gunmen. The same temples that had survived sandstorms and earthquakes fell to explosives. Statues were shattered, shrines erased. The world watched for a week and moved on. What ISIS destroyed with bombs, the world destroyed with indifference. And yet, even that wasn't the full story. Palmyra didn't just vanish because of war. It vanished because of where it was, inside the wrong country, on the wrong side of a modern line that no ancient map had ever drawn. Today, Palmyra is quiet again, not with peace, but with silence. Tourists are gone. Locals cannot return. It sits surrounded by checkpoints and dust. The ruins that once symbolized connection now mark division. Drones circle above what emperors once admired. And so a city that survived 2,000 years was finally undone, not by time, but by borders. Far away, another city is dying differently. Hebron, in the hills of the West Bank, is one of the oldest continuously inhabited cities on Earth. Its streets twist like veins around the tomb of the patriarchs, a site holy to Jews, Christians, and Muslims. For centuries, people of all faiths lived here side by side. But in the modern age, holiness became politics. After 1948, when Israel was created, Hebron became a fault line. After 1967, when Israel occupied the West Bank, it became a symbol. One city, two realities. The ancient marketplace that once echoed with merchants now echoes with silence. Some streets belong to Palestinians, others are closed, patrolled by soldiers. Metal cages hang above the bazaar to catch the stones thrown down from the settlements above. Here, the border is not on a map. It's in the air. It's gravity itself. A door may open to one country, while its window looks into another. Children walk to school through checkpoints older than they are. Soldiers stand guard beside a shrine that claims to unite three religions, yet divides them every day. Hebron's destruction isn't sudden, it's slow. Every closed street, every blocked doorway, every faded shop sign is another crack in the city's soul. The walls here don't crumble, they grow. And though no bomb has flattened Hebron, it feels hollow all the same. Yet even here, life refuses to disappear. Every dawn the call to prayer rises above rooftops tangled in wires. The sound crosses the checkpoints. It doesn't ask for permission.
Once there was a bridge that united a city. Its arch was so perfect that travelers said it looked like it was drawn by God himself. That bridge stood for over 4 centuries, connecting two halves of a city that never saw itself as separate. The city was Mostar, in Bosnia and Herzegovina. For centuries, it was a crossroads of culture. Ottoman architecture on one side, Austro-Hungarian influence on the other, and a river that didn't divide, but joined them. The old bridge, built in 1566, wasn't just stone, it was identity. People said, if the bridge stands, we stand. But in 1993, the bridge fell. During the Bosnian War, Mostar became a front line. Neighbors who had lived side by side for generations were suddenly enemies. The bridge that had seen centuries of peace was hit by artillery fire. When it collapsed into the Neretva River, the city collapsed with it. It was rebuilt years later, stone by stone. The same river, the same arch. But ask anyone in Mostar, and they'll tell you the bridge isn't the same. Because you can rebuild stone, but not trust. Today, you can stand on that new bridge and see two worlds in one view. On one side, churches. On the other, mosques. Two school systems, two histories, two truths. The bridge connects geography, but not people. Borders don't just exist on maps. Sometimes they live in memory. And once they live there, they never leave. A few hundred kilometers south, another city stands frozen in time, Varosha in Cyprus. Once a luxury resort where movie stars vacationed, its beaches lined with hotels and laughter. By 1974, it was one of the most glamorous places in the Mediterranean. Then, overnight, it became a ghost town. When Turkey invaded Cyprus that year, the residents of Varosha fled, thinking they'd return in a week. They never did. The entire district was fenced off by the Turkish military. For 50 years, no one lived there. Imagine walking down a street where every shop window still displays clothes from 1974. Cars with keys in the ignition, children's toys on balconies, sun-bleached posters of concerts that never happened. It's a city preserved not by care, but by conflict. A modern Pompeii, destroyed not by nature, but by politics. Varosha became a symbol of frozen borders, where the past and present coexist, separated by fences and soldiers. You can stand on a hill outside and see the ghostly skyline shimmering in the heat, a city abandoned to diplomacy. Every negotiation between Greece, Turkey, and Cyprus brings up Varosha, but no one has ever solved it, because reopening it would mean erasing a line, and lines, once drawn, have a way of becoming sacred. If Mostar was divided by war and Varosha by invasion, the next city was destroyed by time itself, but only after borders made sure it stayed forgotten. High in the mountains of eastern Turkey lies a place few outsiders have ever seen, the ruins of Ani. 1,000 years ago, it was known as the City of 1,000 Churches. Once part of the Armenian kingdom, Ani was a center of art, trade, and power. Its cathedrals stood taller than anything in Europe. Poets called it the City of Light. Then came conquest after conquest. Seljuks, Mongols, Ottomans. But Ani didn't truly die until the 20th century, when borders turned it into no man's land. When the Soviet Union drew its frontier with Turkey, Ani ended up on the Turkish side, just meters from the Armenian border. For decades, it sat empty, surrounded by soldiers and barbed wire. Tourists were forbidden. Locals were warned to stay away. Across the river, Armenians could see their ancient capital, but not touch it. Binoculars replaced pilgrimage. Memory replaced presence. For Armenians, Ani became a wound, visible, unreachable. 1,000 years of history, locked behind a line created less than 100 years ago. The ruins still stand. Cracked domes, fallen towers, churches open to the sky. Silence is the only sound, and if you look across the valley, you'll see another flag fluttering, a reminder that history doesn't just vanish, it's fenced off.
And then there's the border that swallows the desert. Western Sahara. It's one of the last colonies left on Earth, claimed by two nations and truly belonging to neither. Once a key stop for traders crossing the Sahara, its main city, Laayoune, now lives under the shadow of an invisible wall, the Moroccan sand berm, a 2,700-kilometer barrier slicing through the desert. Here, the border isn't drawn on paper. It's built from sand, stone, and mines. On one side, Morocco controls the coast. On the other, the Sahrawi people wait in exile, scattered in refugee camps across Algeria. For decades, the United Nations has promised a referendum on independence. It's never happened. The world has moved on, but time here has stopped. The ancient trade routes are gone, buried under checkpoints. A people who once roamed freely now live fenced in, watching a border creep forward with every dune. The desert doesn't forgive lines, it erases them. But for now, the border remains, as stubborn as the wind. And then there's Nagorno-Karabakh, a land of monasteries older than the nations fighting over it, a green valley between Armenia and Azerbaijan that has seen more peace in stone than in people. The first churches here were built before either country existed. The people who lived here spoke Armenian, worshipped in carved stone halls, and called the mountains home. But in the 20th century, Stalin drew a line, placing Nagorno-Karabakh inside Azerbaijan. It was meant to be symbolic. It became destiny. For decades, the people here tried to live with the line. But borders drawn by outsiders never stay still. In 1988, the first war erupted. Then another in 2020,
then again in 2023. Each time the map changed. Each time the scars deepened. Today, most of Nagorno-Karabakh's Armenians have fled. The ancient monasteries still stand, but they're silent now. The villages have new names. The maps have new borders. And another chapter of history has been written in pencil. From Palmyra to Hebron, from Mostar to Ani, from the sands of the Sahara to the mountains of Karabakh, one pattern repeats. The past never truly dies. It's only trapped, waiting for us to look closer. When you study borders, you realize they don't just divide land, they divide memory. They separate what was from what could have been. Every line you see on a map is a compromise between power and people, but the land doesn't forget. Cities remember. Stones remember. And sometimes when you walk through the ruins of a place like Palmyra or Mostar, you can almost hear the echo of what was lost. The world map you know isn't final. It's still being written, erased, redrawn. And in between those lines lie stories like these. Stories of cities that outlived empires, but not politics. If you've watched this far, you've already proven you care more than maps. You care about the people and histories that maps try to contain. If you want to keep exploring the hidden side of our planet, the places where geography meets memory and borders rewrite destiny, you can subscribe to Locus Key. New stories every week, uncovering the world you thought you knew. Because some lines shouldn't exist, but as long as they do, we'll keep crossing them.